When I reached into my winter coat pocket, I expected old receipts or maybe a forgotten tissue, not a letter with someone else's name on it. The moment I opened it, I realized this wasn't just lost. It was left for someone. And somehow, it ended up with me. I hadn't worn that coat in years. It was the heavy navy one I used to keep for bitter cold mornings, too warm for most winters now. I only pulled it from the back of my closet because the weather had turned unexpectedly sharp, the kind of cold that makes your breath feel heavier. As I slipped my hand inside the pocket, my fingers brushed something stiff. At first, I thought it was a ticket stub from an old train ride. But when I pulled it out, my heart paused. A letter. Folded neatly. Cream-colored paper, aged at the edges. But the strangest part wasn't that it was inside my coat. It was the name written on the front. For Hannah. My name isn't Hannah. I don't know any Hannah. And no one, absolutely no one, had ever borrowed this coat. I turned the envelope over. No return address. No marking. Just a faint scent, like lavender that had faded over seasons. For a moment, I wondered if it was a prank or something that had slipped into my pocket years ago by mistake. But the paper felt too deliberate. Too careful. I sat on the edge of my bed, the winter light cold through the window, and held the envelope between my fingers. I don't know why I hesitated so long before opening it, maybe because the handwriting felt intimate. As if it wasn't meant for a stranger's eyes. But curiosity is a quiet force, and it pulls harder than logic. So finally, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once. The first line froze me. Hannah, I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth, but it's time you knew what really happened that winter. My breath caught. Whatever this letter was, whoever it was meant for, it wasn't just a message. It was a confession. And for some reason, it had found me. I stared at the letter so long the words began to blur. The room felt colder, as if the draft from outside had slipped through the windows and settled beside me. Whoever wrote this, they weren't writing casually. These were the kind of words people save for the end of something, an ending of a season, a relationship, or a truth they've been carrying too long. I read the first lines again, slower this time, letting each one sink in. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth, but it's time you knew what really happened that winter. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. What winter? What truth? I hadn't even met a Hannah in my life, yet a letter about a secret winter memory was sitting in my coat. The coat I'd owned for years, the coat nobody else ever touched. I turned the envelope upside down, searching for a date. Just a faint pencil mark. 2019. 6 years ago. I tried to remember where I wore this coat in 2019. I'd traveled to Boston that February for a conference. I'd visited my parents in the UK around Christmas. I'd taken long morning walks during the snowstorms. And suddenly, a small memory tugged at me. I remembered losing the coat for 2 days. It had disappeared from my workplace coat rack during a lunch break, only to reappear 2 days later hanging on the far end, as if someone had quietly returned it. I never questioned it because nothing seemed missing. But what if something had been added instead? My chest tightened at the possibility. I looked back at the paper and kept reading. I know you tried to forgive me, and maybe you even did, but I never forgave myself. I thought hiding the truth would protect you. Instead, it haunted us both. The words carried a weight, a sadness I could feel even though they weren't meant for me. Whoever wrote this loved Hannah. And whoever wrote this was carrying something that hurt. I scanned the rest of the page quickly but found only one more line before it abruptly ended. If you're reading this, then I couldn't tell you in person. My breath caught. Was the writer gone? Or simply afraid to speak the truth aloud? I leaned back slowly, the letter trembling slightly in my hand. This wasn't just a misplaced note. This was unfinished, incomplete. And it didn't belong to Hannah anymore. It belonged to me. Because I was the one holding it. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't meant to read only this page. There had to be more. And I needed to find it. The more I stared at the letter, the heavier it felt. Not just emotionally, physically, as if the paper itself carried the weight of whatever truth the writer couldn't speak. I set it gently on my bed and grabbed the coat, checking every pocket again. Maybe there was another note. Another page. A clue. Nothing. Just fabric, stitches, and the faint lavender scent that didn't belong to me. I slipped the coat on, feeling the weight of it settle over my shoulders. The memory of those 2 missing days in 2019 crept back, clearer now that I was forcing myself to remember. It was snowing the day it went missing. I had hung it on a crowded coat rack at work, everyone rushing in from the storm. When I reached for it after lunch, it was gone. I had panicked at first. My keys were in the pocket, along with a USB drive for a presentation. I searched every hallway, every hangar, every empty office. 2 days later, the coat reappeared. Perfectly hung. Dry. Neatly placed. As if it had never been taken. At the time, I was relieved enough not to question anything. But now I wondered if someone had borrowed it. Or needed it. Or had slipped something into it while I wasn't paying attention. The letter didn't feel random. It felt intentional. But why my coat? Why me? I picked up the envelope again, turning it sideways. A faint indentation caught my eye. Someone had pressed down hard when writing. Almost as if their hand trembled. I read the line again. If you're reading this, then I couldn't tell you in person. Not gone. Just unable. Unable could mean many things: distance, fear, illness, guilt. I tried to imagine the writer. Someone who cared deeply for Hannah. Someone who believed they had failed her. Someone who wanted her to know the truth but couldn't face her with it. A single question echoed through my mind. What truth? I folded the letter back into its envelope and slipped it into my bag. If I wanted answers, I needed to start with the only connection I had. The code itself. Where it had gone. Who might have taken it. Why it had come back with a letter tucked inside. And why the person it was meant for never received it. I grabbed my keys and stepped outside, the cold air hitting my face like a reminder. This wasn't just a mystery. This was someone's unfinished story. And I was stepping straight into the middle of it. The winter air bit at my cheeks as I stepped outside, coat zipped up to my chin. It felt strange wearing it now, knowing that a secret had once traveled in its pocket. I kept brushing my fingertips against the lining, half expecting to find something new hidden there. My first stop was the place where the coat had gone missing years ago, my old workplace. I hadn't been there in almost 4 years. The building looked smaller now, or maybe I had simply grown away from that chapter of my life. The receptionist, a young man with friendly eyes, greeted me with a polite smile. "Can I help you?" I hesitated. How was I supposed to explain this without sounding unhinged? I used to work here, I began, and in 2019 I lost a coat for a couple of days. I'm trying to figure out if anyone ever turned it in. Or if someone borrowed it. He blinked, clearly confused. A coat? From 2019? I forced a small smile. I know it sounds odd. But I think someone may have left something in it, something important. He nodded slowly, then motioned toward the hallway. You could try the old floor manager. He's still here, Mr. Carter. That name tugged at something familiar. Mr. Carter, yes. A quiet man, maybe in his late 50s, always sipping tea and humming. I found him in the maintenance room, exactly where he used to sit, warming his hands around a mug. His eyes lit up when he recognized me. "Well, look who's returned," he said warmly. "It's been a long time." "It has," I said, taking a seat. "I wanted to ask you something strange." He chuckled softly. "I like strange. Makes the day interesting." I took a breath. "Do you remember my navy winter coat going missing in 2019? He leaned back, thinking. "That was a heavy snow week, wasn't it?" "I remember people losing gloves, hats, but a coat," his brow furrowed. "Actually, yes. Someone did hand me a navy coat." My heart jumped. "Do you remember who?" He nodded slowly, eyes drifting upward as he searched his memory. "A woman. Middle-aged. Short brown hair. She came in soaked from the snow and said she found it outside, as if it had been dropped." "Did she say her name?" He shook his head. "No. But she looked upset. Like she'd been crying." A chill swept through me, not from the winter air, but from the connection forming in my mind. A crying woman. A returned coat. A letter written to someone named Hannah. Did she leave anything else? I asked quietly. Mr. Carter hesitated, then said. "She asked me to put the coat back where it belonged, and she said, she'll find it when she's meant to." My stomach tightened. "She?" I asked. "She who?" But Mr. Carter only shook his head. He didn't know. And yet, somehow, that mysterious woman did. Someone knew my coat would return to me. Someone wanted the letter to find its way to the right person. Even if it wasn't me. The words Mr. Carter had spoken kept spinning in my mind as I walked back through the falling snow. She'll find it when she's meant to. Whoever left this coat had planned for the letter to reach its destination. But why had it ended up with me? I decided the only way forward was to retrace every step the coat had taken. From my office to my apartment, and every place in between. Perhaps the missing days held the answer. The first stop was the small cafe near my office where I remembered buying a coffee that morning in 2019. It was the type of cafe that never changed, the same creaking floorboards, the same smell of espresso and cinnamon, the same soft jazz playing overhead. I approached the counter, explaining cautiously. "I used to come here a few years ago. I lost a coat, and it reappeared mysteriously. Did anyone by chance mention anything unusual around that time? Or leave something behind?" The barista, a young woman with bright eyes, frowned thoughtfully. A coat? Let me check the lost and found." She rummaged through a small box under the counter. "Wait, yes, there's a navy coat we never claimed. But someone dropped a small envelope inside it." My heart skipped. "An envelope? What did it say?" She shook her head. "I never opened it. Just handed it back when someone came asking. It had the name Hannah on the front, if that helps." I nodded slowly, my pulse racing. The same name, the same envelope. "Do you remember who dropped it off?" I asked. She bit her lip. "I think it was a woman. She seemed upset, carrying her coat and bag like she'd been running from something. I don't remember her name." "Sorry. No name. No certainty." But I was getting closer. Each step in the past felt like it was pulling me deeper into someone else's story, someone who had trusted the universe, or fate, to deliver this letter to the right person. And yet, here I was. Holding their secret. And slowly realizing that I might be the only person who could finally uncover what happened that winter. I left the cafe with a new sense of purpose, clutching the letter tightly in my coat pocket. Every step through the crisp winter air felt heavier, as if the snow itself carried a memory I needed to uncover. I decided to check my old emails from 2019, hoping for a clue. Maybe there had been a message, a meeting, anything that could connect me to Hannah or the mysterious woman who had returned the coat. Hours passed as I scrolled through old threads, most of them mundane, reminders about conferences, work reports, and occasional lunch invites. Then I froze. A subject line caught my eye. "Hannah, please read before you leave." I clicked it. The sender's name, Clara W. The email was short but pointed. "I can't say this in person. I've tried, but it's too heavy. Please, when the coat returns, read this. I need you to know the truth. See." A shiver ran down my spine. Clara. The same woman from the cafe. The one who had left the coat with the envelope. I leaned back in my chair, trying to absorb the connection forming. Clara had written the letter for Hannah, but it had ended up in my hands. Did fate really intend for me to read this? Or was it merely coincidence? The email ended with a hint. "If you find the letter, follow the chain. It leads to where I couldn't go." My pulse quickened. A chain. A trail. A path Clara had set in motion 6 years ago, now reaching me. I felt a mix of fear and responsibility. Whoever Hannah was, I held a fragment of her story. And somehow, it seemed Clara trusted me, even without knowing me, to continue it. I realized I couldn't simply read and forget. I needed to follow the trail. To find Hannah. To finally understand the truth about that winter. And perhaps, in the process, I would discover why this letter had come to me, not by mistake, but for a reason. The next morning, I woke with a sense of urgency I couldn't ignore. Clara's email had left me restless, the letter burning a quiet heat in my coat pocket. The trail was faint, but it existed, and I had to follow it. First, I revisited the path of the coat in 2019, the places I had worn it, the streets I had walked, the bus stops, the cafe, even the little bookstore where I sometimes lingered. Each location seemed ordinary, but now they carried a weight of history, as if the air itself remembered what had happened. At the bookstore, I showed the letter to the owner, an elderly man named Mr. Larkin. He squinted at it, turning it in his hands. "I've seen this handwriting before," he said quietly. "Clara. She used to come here, often. Always looking at letters, journals, like she was searching for someone." My heart skipped. "Do you know Hannah?" He nodded slowly. "Hannah, yes. They were close. Childhood friends, I think." Clara's letters to her were full of apologies and stories no one else would ever understand. She never gave them directly, always hiding them, leaving them for Hannah to find someday. I leaned closer, almost whispering. "Do you know where Hannah is?" Mr. Larkin shook his head, regret in his eyes. "I think she moved away. Haven't seen her in years." Clara wanted her to know the truth, but circumstances, they kept her apart. "All I can suggest is follow where the letters go." Follow where the letters go. I left the bookstore with a strange mix of determination and unease. Clara had created a chain of messages, hidden in places only she knew I might discover. And somehow, I had become part of it. Each step forward felt like stepping deeper into someone else's grief, someone else's secrets. But I couldn't turn back. I needed to uncover the truth of that winter, not just for Clara and Hannah, but now, for myself. Even if it meant facing secrets I wasn't prepared to hear. I returned home, exhausted but restless. The first letter had opened a door I couldn't close. My mind kept returning to Clara, to Hannah, and to the coat that had silently carried this secret for years. As I removed the coat and hung it on the rack, my fingers brushed the inner pocket again. Something small shifted inside. My heart skipped. Another envelope. It was thinner, almost fragile. No name on the front, just a date, February 2019. I carefully unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable for Clara's, the same precise curves and flourishes. The words inside were brief, but every line struck like a bell. Hannah, I never wanted to hurt you. I thought distance would protect you from the truth, but it only kept you from knowing who I really was. If you ever find this, know that I always loved you, even when I was afraid to admit it. I sank onto the edge of my bed, the letter trembling in my hands. The words were raw, filled with emotion that transcended time. Clara's fear, her love, her regret, all of it poured onto the page as if it were a living thing. But then a line made my blood run cold. I hid the rest where only you could find it, but someone else may have discovered it first. If you are reading this, follow the coat. It knows the way. The coat. The trail. The chain of letters. I realized now that I was more than an accidental reader. I was part of something deliberate, something carefully planned. Someone wanted these messages delivered, even if it took years. And somehow, fate, or Clara, had chosen me to carry them forward. I held the envelope close, my mind spinning with questions. Who had found the previous messages before me? Where exactly had Clara hidden the rest? And most importantly, could I find Hannah before it was too late? The winter wind outside whispered against the window, as if urging me forward. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The search had begun. The next morning, I packed the coat carefully into my bag, along with both letters. Every step I took felt like stepping into a story someone else had written years ago, and yet now I was living it. I returned to the streets I had walked in 2019, tracing the path from my workplace to the small cafe, the bookstore, and the bus stops. Each place seemed familiar, yet it carried a sense of quiet mystery I hadn't noticed before. At the corner near my old apartment, I spotted a tiny mailbox, weathered and chipped. Something tugged at me to check it. Inside, tucked behind a stack of old flyers, was a third envelope. This one was different. Heavier. Tied with a faded ribbon. I hesitated. The handwriting was again Clara's, but this time, it was addressed to me. To the one who found the first letters, it read, "You are part of this chain now. Follow it carefully, and you will reach the truth Hannah deserves. Do not read ahead of the instructions. They must be discovered in order." I felt a chill run through me. I was no longer a passive observer. Clara had intentionally led me into this journey. The envelope contained a folded map, faint pencil marks pointing to specific locations around the city. Alongside it was another note. "Where the winter wind first carried the coat, you will find the next step. Do not falter." My mind raced. Each location was a clue, a piece of the past that Clara had left behind. I realized the search wasn't just about finding Hannah or uncovering Clara's secrets. It was about walking through moments frozen in time, understanding choices made, and perhaps, discovering something about myself along the way. I slipped the map into my coat pocket, heart pounding. Every step I took now carried weight. Every corner, every shadow, might reveal the next piece of a story 6 years in the making. And deep inside, I knew this journey would change everything, if I had the courage to see it through. The map in my pocket felt heavier than the coat itself. Each pencil mark represented a step deeper into a past I had never lived, yet was now unfolding before me. I traced the lines with my finger, trying to make sense of them. One spot stood out, a small park where I had walked countless times, but never noticed its quiet corners. I arrived just as the late morning sun cut through the frost, illuminating the benches and the skeletal branches. I followed the map's directions carefully, scanning every tree, bench, and bush. My pulse quickened as I approached a bench tucked under a row of evergreens, where the snow hadn't quite reached. There it was, a small, weathered tin box, half buried under leaves. My hands shook as I lifted it. The lid was tight, but I pried it open slowly, revealing another letter inside, along with a faded photograph. The letter was brief. Hannah never knew the truth. Only you can guide her to it. Look at the photo carefully, recognize the moment, remember the winter. The next step will reveal itself if you see clearly. I unfolded the photo. It was of a snowy street I recognized immediately, the same one near my old apartment. And in the photo, a figure, hooded and small, leaving a coat on a bench. The coat was unmistakably navy. A realization hit me, this wasn't just a trail for Hannah. Clara had planned every step with someone in mind. And somehow, fate had handed me the role of finder, guide, and witness. The tin box felt cold in my hands, and I hugged it to my chest, sensing the gravity of the story I had stumbled into. Every letter, every hidden place was like a thread weaving a tapestry of love, regret, and secrets waiting to be revealed. I knew the next step would bring me closer to the truth, but also closer to the heartache Clara had carried all these years. And yet, I couldn't stop. Because the winter coat, the letters, and the chain of secrets had chosen me. I had to see it through. The photograph haunted me as I walked back through the park, careful not to disturb the snow that had begun to fall again. I memorized the details, the exact curve of the sidewalk, the placement of the lamp post, the frozen leaves along the path. Every element seemed purposeful, a breadcrumb left for me to follow. I decided to revisit my old apartment building. Maybe the next step of the chain was somewhere I had overlooked 6 years ago. As I approached the familiar brick facade, memories of winter nights, long walks, and quiet streets came flooding back. Inside the building, the hallway smelled faintly of cleaning solution and damp wood. I paused at the coat rack by the elevator, where it all had begun. My fingers traced the hooks as if the coat itself could guide me. And then I noticed it, a small envelope, pinned carefully behind a bulletin board. My breath caught. It was another letter, no name, no date, just familiar handwriting curling across the page. Hannah never knew the truth because she couldn't see it. But you, finder of the lost coat, hold the thread. Follow it to where hearts were broken and promises forgotten. Only there will the story be complete. A lump formed in my throat. The weight of Clara's intention, the care she had taken to protect Hannah while still leaving clues, pressed on me. I felt both awe and responsibility. Every hidden message, every folded note, every envelope tucked away in quiet corners, none of it was accidental. Clara had orchestrated a journey through her regrets, hoping someone would carry the truth forward. I folded the letter and slipped it into my coat pocket beside the map and the first letters. Somewhere, just beyond my reach, the next piece waited. And I knew that when I finally found it, the truth about that winter, the heartbreak, the confessions, and the love Clara had never been able to speak aloud, would finally emerge. I stepped into the cold, winter wind brushing against my face, ready for the next step. The snow was heavier now, settling on the streets in thick, quiet layers. Each step I took felt like I was walking through someone else's memory, yet it was mine to follow. Clara's chain of letters had led me further than I had imagined, guiding me through corners of the city that held echoes of the past. Following the map, I arrived at an old community center, long unused but still standing firm. The pencil marks on Clara's map indicated the small garden at the back, where ivy climbed the walls and snow covered the benches. I crouched down carefully and noticed a loose brick at the edge of the path. My fingers trembled as I lifted it. Beneath it lay a small, weathered envelope. The handwriting made my heart skip. Hannah, if you're reading this, know that you were loved and forgiven even when truth was hidden. I could not give this to you directly, so it waited. You who found the code are the bridge. Now, follow the instructions in the next letter, and you will understand everything. Inside was a final note with directions leading to a quiet house near the river, the place Clara had described as where the winter had changed everything. I felt a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. I had come so far, yet the final truth, the reason Clara had hidden these letters, the winter she could never speak of, and the message meant for Hannah, was still just out of reach. The wind whispered through the ivy, carrying a faint lavender scent. I realized then that the journey was more than solving a mystery, it was about understanding love, regret, courage, and the fragile threads that connect people across time. I tucked the letters and map securely into my coat and made my way to the street, each step feeling like I was walking into someone else's heartbeat. And somewhere ahead, the final truth awaited. The house by the river was quiet, almost as if it had been waiting for me all these years. The winter sun glinted off the frozen water as I approached, heart pounding with anticipation and fear. I knocked softly. A woman opened the door. Her eyes widened as she looked at me, and in an instant, I recognized her, not Clara, but Hannah. The realization struck me with a quiet intensity. I had found the person the letters were meant for. I handed her the letters, watching as her hands trembled. She read the first few lines, then the second envelope, and finally the photograph. Tears welled in her eyes as the story of Clara's love, regret, and careful hiding came alive before her. We didn't speak at first. Words felt inadequate. But the quiet understanding between us said everything. The letters had carried the truth across time, and I had been the bridge to deliver it. Hannah finally whispered, she wanted me to know. Thank you for bringing this to me. I stepped back, letting her absorb the moment. And as the wind swept across the river, I felt a strange calm. The journey had been long and mysterious, but it had brought closure, connection, and a story that would finally rest. Sometimes, messages are lost, hidden, or delayed, but they always find their way to the right person, even years later. If you enjoyed this story of letters, secrets, and winter confessions, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. You never know which story might reach someone who needs to hear it most.